Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And I'm Sara Marsh, most recently Ward 10 City Councillor in Kitchener as of last week.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 We've got big news.
Do we ever? We have a brand new website.
And so many amazing things to check out on it.
BonnPark.com.
What can we find there?
You can listen to our episodes right on the site.
You can check out the Bonn Park community blog.
You can find out how you can partner with us.
Oh, and the shopping. We have so much fun merchandise.
I'm going to buy myself the I'm the Marshall Ward tote.
Me too.
BonnPark.com. Check us out. We'll just get started. I'm going to start with my most pressing questions. I really hope that you're ready, Sarah. To H or not to H? You know, like I'm Sarah without the H. I'm not sure if we can be friends because you have the H, but you know, I think you're lovely. We got to have this duel. What do you think?
Yeah.
What's the right way?
Well, I mean, Sarah, you can be my friend as far as I'm concerned, but I've always preferred the H.
Have you?
Of course.
Oh, in the words of Jimmy Fallon, H's are ugh.
Okay, A. I mean, we are Canadian, so we have H's at the end of a lot of our, phrases.
All right.
But, when I was in grade 1, I was a pretty precocious little reader, and I could read, pretty advanced level, but I was reading out loud, and the teacher said, okay, Sarah, you'll like this one. Read this sentence. And it had the word Sarah without an H in it. And I stumbled. I was like, what is this word? I do not know this word.
Oh, I love this. What is this text with my name in it? It's so rare.
No. I didn't have my name because it didn't have an H.
I know, but I want to know now. Can I get a copy of this text?
Yeah. No, but I'm good with no H or H.
All right.
Let's be inclusive.
We will call a truce, and forever both Sarahs shall get along. I've once seen CERAH. As Sarah. And I thought that was very interesting.
That is an interesting way.
In the blurb, I'm looking forward to writing Sara Marsh sits down with Sara and Marshall.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually really fun.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. That calls back to our first working title. Was it Regretting Sara Marshall?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. That's before we knew what we were for this show.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think because the H is the more common spelling, I usually get an H. Do you ever get your H dropped like I did to you yesterday? Yeah?
Yeah, I do. And
so I can stop feeling sorry for myself and that
don't
people
worry
aren't paying
about it.
attention.
No, it's really people don't care.
They don't care, do they? No. Marshall often gets one L.
Yeah. I got it
Which I
from
think
a
is so
family
weird.
member recently who's known me forever. Yeah, with one L. It's
That
like,
was a typo.
come on. No, it wasn't.
Was it a
No,
bird?
it was handwritten. Yeah,
Was
it
it
was
like-
handwritten on a box.
Someone trying to get your goat?
No.
That's meat space autocorrect.
It was my brother-in-law, Dwight, wrote Marshall with one L on a box of hockey cards.
I'd say hi, Dwight, but I don't know if he listens.
No,
I know David does.
Dwight
Hi,
does
David.
not listen to podcasts. No.
Oh, hi, David.
Do you know David as well?
Yes.
All right, should we ask real questions?
Yeah. I was trying to figure out what grades we were in at KCI. I think you were a grade younger than me. If I was in grade 11, I think you were in grade 10.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Probably.
Yeah.
Were you the same grade as your wife?
Yes.
Then yes.
Okay. And we were at KCI.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's how you first met, way back when.
Yeah, but I actually don't have many memories of talking to you at KCI.
No, exactly. Well, you were a whole year older, so a
Did you
little
run
bit
with the cool
intimidating.
kids?
Yeah. What's that?
Did you run with the cool kids?
Yeah.
That were a year older, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But I've watched your work over the years, and then we kind of just managed to run into each other every once in a while. I remember being so proud when I heard you became a counselor. You know that. What led you to that position? I'm not sure what you were doing professionally before you became a counselor for the City of Kitchener.
Yeah, so I was Earlier in my career, I was working at the Working Center and doing a few roles there. And then after having my twins, who are now adults, I went back to school and I did a Master's of Adult Education and Community Development.
Can I take a second to say,
Yeah.
way to go? That's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough having little ones and being a student. So all those, adult students out there, keep going. You can do it. But for me, it was important to take my interest in sort of altruistic goals of the community to the next level. I really wanted to, make a difference. And so after that, I asked smarter people than me, what do you think would be a good fit for me? Where should I consider applying? And I'll be doing that again soon. But back then in 2007, I talked to a person named Theron Kramer, who said, Sarah, you should totally work at the Center for Community-Based Research. So I applied there and I ended up working there full-time for several years. And he also said, Sarah, I'm on this committee. I think you'd really enjoy it. It's called Compass Kitchener, and it's a citizens advisory committee where we meet once a month and we talk about big city issues, what are the community's priorities and how well is council addressing them. So I said, oh, well, that's fascinating. That's totally up my alley. I'll go there. So I did, and I served on Compass Kitchener for 8 years. And as I became more and more engaged, more and more into what we're doing, I presented to council a few times, which was really scary. And I always thought, these council members, they must have so much, experience. I would never be able to sit in their seats. But then when I looked into it, I was like, oh, no, you just have to be a citizen and you have to be 18. That's the qualification.
Check mark.
Yeah. So it was through my community involvement, my volunteer work, that I became engaged enough to run.
In 1999, I was the City of Kitchener's artist in residence.
Yes, congratulations
Thanks.
with the thumbprints, right?
Thumbprints, yeah. And I remember making presentations as well to City Council. And I was under the impression that these people were experts at everything and they knew they had an answer for everything. It was years later I realized they don't, right? They rely on other people, you know what I mean? And you do have areas of expertise.
Sure.
But you're collectively a group who, if you don't have the answer, you'll go find it somewhere, right?
Absolutely. We actually rely on the staff to be our experts in various areas, whether it's planning, operations, all the different areas that the city touches. We're not the experts. We're the citizens' representatives, and we're the ones who are supposed to bring what the citizens want to staff, and then staff come back with recommendations about how best to move forward. And that's kind of how it works. Congratulations to all those who won their seats this past election that just happened. And, and if people are interested to get more involved, I highly recommend people volunteer within their city. I think that it's how our democracy will continue to thrive if we have more people who are engaged and understanding how it works.
I think that's the biggest problem that, it's an age-old problem, right? People will complain nothing's happening or these issues aren't being resolved, but it's a big push to get people to get involved.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I think the first thing that comes to mind when I think of that position as a city councillor is you become accessible to an infinite number of people who can reach out and contact you. Is that not at first pretty overwhelming, having your phone number and I guess email address out there for people to reach out about anything really, right?
Mm-hmm. I suppose, at the beginning it can be overwhelming. And, I was one of those politicians that was silly enough to put her personal cell phone number on her signs.
I'm going to be accessible for the people.
Call me anytime. So but rarely did people use that number to a point of overkill. Like people used it if they needed it, and that's it, and which I really appreciated. So, sometimes people would call me with a very urgent issue, and that could not wait, and so I would direct them to the right people and try to solve their problem with them. But to your question directly, yeah, over the 8 years that I served on council, so much of my life has been dedicated to responding to residents for all their queries, all their questions, their dreams, their passions, their complaints, like frustrations, yeah. And I've taken them to heart. Like I really do want to make sure that they feel heard. And even if we can't do everything that everybody wants, which of course we can't, I wanted to make sure they understood the reason why, if we weren't able to, why we couldn't do what they wanted. But yeah, it gets a little tiresome when you can't walk out your front door and just have family time without being interrupted.
Mm-hmm. I imagine that's how Justin Bieber feels a little bit. I'm being serious.
Yeah, me and Justin.
Yeah. No, but it's just you're so accessible and everyone knows your face, especially because you're working for the area
right
in which you live.
That's right.
So that's
typically, yeah.
Typically that's the case. So I think your role there, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is a lot like something Marshall and I talk about extensively, which is just listening to people. That
Absolutely.
role must be a lot of listening and trying to relate. And
yes,
most people probably just want someone to hear their issue more and just know what, I know people want solutions, but they want someone to just open ears, hear their issue.
Absolutely. People want to feel heard. And so not only do they want you to listen, they also want you to reflect back, at least a rudimentary understanding of what their issue is. And then concrete steps about how you're going to address them. So yeah, they do want to be heard. One time, a woman came to me and said, "You're our counselor, right?" And I said, "Yep." And so she started launching into a personal story that, after a couple of minutes, it became clear to me she thought I was like a psychological counselor. I was the person that, she was supposed to tell her personal problems to. And I was like, well, hold on. So
I can definitely connect you with someone.
Yes, yeah. I am not that person.
Yes. I will listen, but you might want a professional here. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Years ago, I remember turning on Rogers Cable 20,
mm-hmm.
a city council meeting on a Monday night.
Mm-hmm. One of our people that still does in town. Yeah. I know that you do this, Marshall.
Yeah, I do enjoy watching. Yeah. Well, I'm the chair on the board of directors at KW Bilingual, and I actually learn a lot watching
mm-hmm.
council meetings. But I remember the first time I saw the big digital clock.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, this looks great, right? When did that clock come into play, and how was it explained kind of to you in terms of like, mm-hmm. this is exactly the amount of time people are going to get to speak on this matter, and then we're going to move on? Because for me, that clock is a reassurance that this meeting is going to move in a forward direction, and we're not going to be here too late, right? How do I guess what I'm asking is, how does time work in those council meetings,
right? And
the role of that clock,
and how do you respect the issue that's being addressed at the same time? It seems like a crazy balance, like a wild balance.
It is, yeah. I mean, well, usually when we come to the meeting, we've read hundreds and hundreds of pages, depending on the topic, about an issue that's especially contentious ones like development issues, where we don't need all night to learn about the issue. We've learned about it. Now it's time to come to the point of what is our opinion about it, and in the 11th hour, can we convince enough people on council to share our opinion, right?
Right.
And
right.
so
come prepared.
Yeah. And so, but in terms of the clock, when that first came into the council chambers, for me, it felt like really too much. It was
ominous, sort of
overkill.
Yeah.
We always had 5 minutes to speak at a time, and then another 5 minutes for a second round if we wanted. And if all 11 council members spoke for that whole 10 minutes, we would be there till midnight. And it's wishful thinking to think that the clock actually makes the meeting go super fast, because it doesn't. Often we would be quite late. But time comes in where it helps when the delegates, who oftentimes it's their first time coming to council, if they see that the clock is running out and they're still in the middle of their speech, they know that it's time to wrap up, and it helps the chair to sort of gently say, well, I've given you a little extra time, as you can see, and so please wrap up your comments, that type of thing. When it comes to council members, people can often ignore the clock and still need to be reminded because they're so engaged in what they're saying. Yeah. So yes, it's good to have a timekeeper. And in your meetings that you chair, Marshall, I would say that's a really valuable tool to have. But if it's there on a constant basis, it can easily just become a part of the woodwork.
And in city council, who is watching the time? Is it the mayor?
Whoever's chairing the meeting. So for council meetings, it's the mayor. For committee meetings, it's the committee chair. And then the clerk can help with that. But the clerk does not insert themselves unless it's absolutely necessary. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I want to talk about time in a different sense here.
Yeah.
Your time. I am reading the list of boards that you're active in or have been active in. Downtown Action and Advisory Committee, Safe and Healthy Community Advisory Committee, Kitchener Downtown Business Improvement Area, Kitchener Public Library Board. We love Kitchener Public Library.
Yay.
KW, I should say it the right way. KW Art Gallery Board of Directors, Kitchener Power Corporation Board, and Dog Designation Appeal Committee. It's a lot of commitments. And Marshall and I were talking before you got here about that, and not yours commitments specifically, but about time and how much of it we have to give, and how we're finding, and we're not sure if it's this point in the pandemic. Marshall, I should almost let you explain this. I'm kind of giving Sarah a two-part question here.
I've heard it said that the pandemic has changed all of us in one way or another. And
our perception of time.
Yeah. The one most significant for me is whatever I struggled with when it came to communication. I still write big emails to people and get back very curt, short emails. I can tell they've been thumbed into a phone a lot of the times, right?
Usually mine, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And some people have said to me, well, you're the last of a dying breed kind of thing, right? So, but I move forward with that. And that was one struggle, but I find that especially over the last year and 6 months for sure, that there's a lot of just not getting back. There's a lot of not responding. There's a lot of not follow through. There's a lot of not me specifically writing emails to people with their name at the top, something personal, and then requesting something or asking to partner or something of that nature, or just inquiring. And some of it can just be a, no, don't have time for you right now. But I'm getting completely and utterly what I call ghosted, right? And so something has happened. Something has shifted there.
Because that's new.
Yeah, there used to be this certain balance that it seemed to exist where something has really gone far to the one side, where it's very, very hard to get consistent communication, I find, going on with people except for your inner circle.
Yeah, I hear you.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have a few thoughts on that. So first of all, you touched on earlier how so all of a sudden as a part-time council person with a lot of commitments, you're bombarded with, inquiries or emails and phone calls, etc. And there comes a tipping point where, you just can't physically respond to every single email. Although I think that is valuable. I think that it's important to respond to every email. But there comes a point at which a person just cannot continue to try to uphold that standard. And so there's, especially with the pandemic, people's maybe attention span got smaller, got shorter, and also their patience level got shorter. So if a person's just, and I'm not suggesting you would do this, but sometimes people just email with their frustrations and anger and just like, what the heck do you think you guys are doing? Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to respond to that kind of inquiry because
where's the constructive thing that we can work on here? Thank you for your complaint.
Yeah, thank you for letting me know. I had one of those last week where somebody said, and sorry, I had one of those a few months ago where a person contacted me and just went off on why haven't you guys just kicked out all the homeless people from the encampment? Why aren't you doing anything about it? And you guys, you just sit there in your ivory tower and you don't do anything about it. First of all, that person's very ill-informed. Secondly, it's something that does, it has kept me up at night, what to do about the homelessness in our community that's growing and deepening, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better. So how dare they think that I am, just, sitting in my privilege and not doing anything about it. But also, it's going to take all levels of government to respond, not just the city. In fact, the city is the one with the least amount of control over what we can do about it. So, but how was I going to respond to that guy? And
also, is this email, are they offering their own backyard or a spare room?
Right.
If you're not offering a solution, then
his
you can't
solution
complain.
was, we should make sure, we should set people's tents up on all of the council persons' lawns. Let's do that.
Because you haven't been working on it already.
Yeah. Anyway, I did respond to him, and I said, and then his response back to me was, I've clearly touched a nerve, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, right. Because when you come back with an intelligent argument, you're out of control and obviously upset.
Exactly.
That's got to be where we go next.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but also, Marshall, I mean, you've got adult children, do you now? Or you
one.
both do?
Yeah, one adult and one teen.
One
I've got
teen,
two
yeah.
teens. Yeah.
Two teens.
Mm-hmm.
I've got my teens are adults. They're 18 and like twins, and then I've got a 12-year-old, and they're on their various apps where they communicate with their friends. The most recent one being Snapchat, and they don't really communicate in long, beautifully constructed emails. They don't even respond to emails from important people like school, but they'll respond quickly to a text or a snap. And so I think that part of the answer to your question that you posed many minutes ago was just, I think it's the way of the current culture where we're bombarded with so much information all the time from all different sources, and we have to respond on so many platforms that actually I love a long email. I love to receive those and to be able to sit down and respond to them, but it is difficult to give them justice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I do see where people do enjoy longer emails. If someone sends me a book to read, I'll read it. And then when I'm ready to sit down, I'll write you a really nice response, but it takes a while to do that.
And sometimes our communications for Bonn Park are one word via email. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're pages.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm sorry when it types from my phone and I ask you if you want to record a chocolate baked, I don't know, sports car or whatever it is that it changes it to.
When I think about that homelessness issue, I can't think of any other thing. Maybe you can, Sarah, if that is like this, where the causes of homelessness are incredibly complex, right? And yet the way people react to homelessness and I just heard it the other day, the yelling of "get a job" out the window while driving by. I can't think of anything else where one citizen thinks they've got the answer summed up in 3 words, right?
Right.
And they're yelling it at somebody who can't even begin to process how to get themselves to that point into an employment situation, because I don't know how someone comes back from living in a tent into a fully functioning, healthy lifestyle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of relationship building and trust building, because a lot of the folks who are living rough have had so many broken relationships and broken trust that they've essentially given up, right? And then self-medicating, and that becomes more and more a vicious cycle, right? Where the medicine that they're giving themselves is poison from the black market. It's not a regulated substance typically, and it's messing with their brains. It's messing with their sense of self, and they become really a person who would very much want to get a job. Go get a job. Yeah, yeah, sure, I would love to get a job, but first I need to eat. And next I need to dull this pain that I'm in. And next I'll need to eat again, or
process the last job I lost. Give me a second. Or, there's a lot. I mean,
so much.
I'm going to tell a super personal story. And Marshall, I think that you are aware of this already. Who knows with 3 years of recording podcasts, what I've said and what I haven't. But my mom experienced homelessness, and she had just run out of favors to call in, couches to sleep on. And although she never ended up in a tent or on the street, it was maybe strangers' couches sometimes, or her own car. And she was self-medicating with drugs given to her by her family doctor. So that's just my little story.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Hear that.
But that's my little story against some of the stories you're talking about. It's complex. It could be me tomorrow. We don't.
That's right.
None of all of this is guaranteed unless you are sitting on, a bit of a mountain of wealth, and that you can house the next 10 generations of your family. The rest of us are lucky to sort of be in this position, and get a job or clean up that space are not the answers to this.
No, they're not. You're right, Marshall. Like, it's the kind of topic where people think they have the answer in 3 words to such a complex problem. I think another different but similarly just sort of dismissed topic that's very complex and difficult to solve is the climate change crisis, right? And people think, well, I'll just keep recycling, or I'm going to be really good and I'm going to compost this compostable item. We're well beyond that, right? And so as a society, we need to, and as a global society, we need to figure out how are we going to change how, in a very fundamental way, how we respond to the climate crisis. And I would argue that the homelessness and housing crisis is very similar in that we need to adjust globally. How are we going to respond to human rights, human needs, and try to look after everyone.
We're going to take a moment to hear from this episode's sponsor.
Ever wondered what happens inside a black hole?
Or what quantum mechanics tells us about reality?
Curious about how the universe began or how it will end?
Feed your curiosity with Conversations at the Perimeter, a science podcast from Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics.
On each episode, we chat with a different scientist about the grandest questions in the universe, from the quantum to the cosmos.
Geek out to Conversations at the Perimeter, wherever you get your podcasts.
And now back to the show.
Do your kids, do you feel like they have a good understanding that their mom's out there fighting the good fight? Sara and I talk so much about community on our podcast, right?
Yeah, you do.
I've always been I think I knew this before I could articulate it, but I've always thought, well, I have a newspaper column in the Waterloo Chronicle.
Yes.
I have to earn that spot every week. I can't just phone it in. That's my spot. It's a nice spot, and I need to deliver something good and meaningful every week.
And you feel, it's not honored, responsible, help me.
Yeah, well, no, I certainly feel honored to have
you feel honored to have privilege. Thank you.
I can't think of
any.
anybody else in the Chronicle who has had a column for that long. There's writers in the Waterloo Region Record who've been there for a long time. But there's a lot that goes into that longevity, right? And the fact there were many decisions made over the years as to who gets cut and who doesn't, and I'm still there, right?
Way to go,
Thanks.
Marshall. Yeah, it's because you approach your work with a sense of integrity.
And I believe about living in your city in the same way too, that you have to you don't just live your life in a city and just take and take and take. Well, what are you giving back, right? And
that's right.
Clearly, your parents, your kids, hopefully, if not, they don't see it now, they'll see it later. That mom was out there fighting, and doing everything she could to make not just their lives a better and healthier, but our community's lives better, right?
Yeah, they do. Luckily, they do acknowledge that, and they appreciate that already. So yeah, that's important to me. When you and I knew each other back in high school, I really didn't appreciate all that was going on locally with the local council of the day.
No, as teenagers, our whole world is about us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, graduating from high school, I was like, okay, where's the university that's farthest that I can go to? I went to another province and I took off and didn't look back. And, when I came back years later and settled down here in Kitchener, one of my goals as a member of this community is to try to help make this city a place that my kids don't just say, okay, I'm out of here, and not want to return. Who knows how that'll turn out. I do think it's important, and there's value in going and exploring the world in other cities and then in other places, and then hopefully return. I don't know. We'll see.
So there wasn't a hint in high school. What I mean is, like, what I remember about KCI was there were students who were on like student council and president and all that stuff. And they were big, loud kind of characters, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you being very kind of unassuming and quiet, just an all-around nice person, a nice student. But there wasn't even anything in high school where you thought to yourself, I could imagine being in some kind of leadership position and getting really involved someday.
I mean, I was involved in different groups and clubs, but I didn't have that raw, let's own the school, let's win that popularity contest. That was never something that I wanted to do. Mm-hmm.
No eyes on me. That's my phrase.
Really?
No eyes on me. No, thank you.
But your ears.
Oh, no, my ears. Oh, yes. Well, I mean, this entire project, Bonn Park, has been a real exercise in Marshall and I getting our voice out there. Not necessarily just to serve the community, but also as a learning experience and an exploration of ourselves, right? I think it's taken some guts for us to do that.
It was a rebirth for me.
Yeah, thanks for putting it that way.
I used to have a lot of confidence, and I remember that I told Sarah this just a while ago. I used to be on CKWR 98.5 radio, and when I listen to those tapes, I think, wow, that 30-year-old had a lot of confidence. You know what I mean?
Who's that guy?
Yeah, where did that go?
Right, yeah.
But it's part ego, right?
Yeah,
and part just being, I don't know.
Yeah. I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about, how you're serving the community with all of these roles on these committees, advisory boards, et cetera. Can you tell us about some of the big wins that you've had in these roles or some of the things that were really important to you?
Oh, yeah, sure. So let's see. I mean, yeah, you mentioned how you guys love the Kitchener Public Library, how it's such an amazing place. And serving on that board for the last 8 years has really been a privilege and an honor to me. And serving with people who are really passionate about libraries in general, but about KPL in particular. So one big win would be just hiring their current CEO, Mary Chevreau. It was a bit of an anomaly to hire somebody who was never a librarian before. She had worked in the private sector to sell things like library software. But when she came to the library, she really breathed a breath of fresh air into how to re-envision and reimagine what libraries are in the current context. We're always living and growing, and the library is a place where it's important to have that touchstone of I can learn more here, I can be more enriched here, and so we want to do that with things like a place where you could have a podcast, or where you could record your musical instrument, where you could borrow one of the 150 musical instruments that they lend out, things like that, not just books. I would say also, I served on the Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee, and to have a downtown cycling grid where people of all ages from 8 to 80 feel safe cycling, oh my gosh, that felt like a really big win.
It's something that we needed for a long time.
Yes, yeah, and we need more connected trails so that people can go anywhere and feel safe.
We were talking to astrophysicist and cosmologist. Did I get it right? Dr. Katie Mack, who is the Hawking Chair at Perimeter Institute recently. And we met her in Belmont Village, and she had come by bicycle, and she was coming from the other end of town. And this is her path back and forth. And without those trails and and safe spaces for cyclists, she wouldn't be able to do that as a new important figure in our community. Very important.
Definitely. I thought of another win. Okay, so during the pandemic, early on, it became clear that there was, a growing movement with the Black Lives Matter movement, and also with Land Back Camp, locally. And there was a point at which there was so much impatience for change to happen now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, right now, let's go. And it was something that I'm really proud to say that our council was able to respond to. And it was in like light speed time when you think of how council normally works, but it did take about a year for us to achieve all that we wanted to do. So we approved and hired a 5-person team to be our equity, anti-racism, and Indigenous issues team, to really take it seriously and help to change the culture of our organization, and to help understand how we interact with the public, and make sure that we are having an equity lens on all that we do. So, holy cow, am I ever proud of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And do you know some of the initiatives that they've been able to bring into place?
Right. So we're starting out with doing an inventory of how we do engagement, and making sure that whether you're an engineer at the city or whether you're a planner, when you're engaging with the community, you're looking for the voices of the less usual suspects. And one of the things we did during the pandemic is we opened up the community centers where people could find their food from the food bank, because previously, if you went to get a food hamper, it would be a long bus ride, or typically. And now we have community centers that regularly have weekly pickups where people can come in their own neighborhoods,
which is way more accessible for people to try and reach. Yeah. And that's something that should stay.
Yep.
So I want to ask Sara Marsh's downtime, when you have downtime. Looking at your board list, I'm like, well, you're a reader, you like to cycle, you probably have a dog. Tell us about what you do in your downtime.
We did. We got a COVID puppy, and so she's 2 years old now. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is go for a good long dog walk. And that's my thinking time, where I can maybe just put in my earbuds and listen to a podcast, or, just do some reflecting time on my own. I like, and I as I mentioned before we began the podcast, I received a guitar recently, and I'm terrible at it.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So terrible.
You can only get better from here. That's the fun time.
Yeah. So I hope to find a guitar teacher to help me figure out I know it's probably not rocket science, but it really feels like a lot.
Yeah.
To learn.
Just learn 4 basic chords and you'll get through most of the 80s and 90s.
That's right. Yeah. I need to figure it out. So I will.
Sara, I've always really valued the idea. I've worked in education. I've worked in journalism. Oftentimes there's not always you can't always finish off your body of work that you've created in a really great, perfect way. Like sometimes it's anticlimactic, sometimes it ends abruptly. You don't always have a choice, right? But you like to imagine coming in for a nice landing and putting it all in a box and wrapping a proverbial bow on it, right?
Saying goodbye in your own terms.
Yeah, just being really proud of that body of work so you can kind of move on.
Right.
And I believe it'll set you off on it's like relationships, right? If your last relationship ended okay, hopefully the next one you got some momentum going into it, right?
That's a good way to put it.
I've heard about that when someone loses a spouse, that if you lost your spouse to death and you were emotionally connected and okay with it, you're better set up for future relationships, right?
Yeah.
And I think of professional workplaces like that a bit too. How is it that a counselor kind of winds it down and finishes off that, what I refer to as a body of work, which is what it is. It's years of commitment that has a beginning and a middle and hopefully a nice end.
Right. Great question. So it would start with a lot of thank yous, because along the way I have been blessed with, and I'm not a religious person, but I use the word blessed because I feel so fortunate to have had so many amazing people that I've worked with along the way. So that goes all the way from, just staff and my colleagues to members of the community, volunteers, leaders, other leaders from other sectors. And so a lot of thank yous. Also, whoever, the person who replaced me will need some coaching and some guidance. And so I'll be open to helping them, get their feet wet and answer any of their questions. I'll be totally all the time in the world for them. And you know what? I will have a certain amount of FOMO, I am sure, because, I've been totally immersed in city building from that role, from the perspective of that role. And so wherever I go next, I want to go in with 2 feet and like just get right in there. But I'll keep an eye on what's going on at the city and see how I can, add my 2 cents here or there where I think it's needed.
Bonn Park is made possible with the support of the Kitchener Public Library and the Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation.
Our show is produced by Sarah Geidlinger
And Marshall Ward.
with audio engineering by Sarah Geidlinger.
Bonn Park's original music is by Alan Lung. Harry, still with us? We want to tell you about a fun project that we have. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We have another podcast called An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. Here's Colin Hunter of Kayfabe News to tell you all about it.
Welcome to An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. I'm Colin Hunter from Kayfabe News. Marshall is utterly obsessed with professional wrestling. Sara is utterly perplexed by professional wrestling. On each episode of An Unscripted Spectacle, Marshall and Sara talk with a different guest from the world of wrestling. Promoters, referees, journalists, and current and past stars of the Squared Circle to talk deeply about the strange magic of professional wrestling that has enchanted Marshall his whole life. Can they turn Sara into a fellow connoisseur of professional wrestling? She'll need some convincing.
I find out who Jimmy Corderas is. Who the heck are you?
Oh, well, that's a good question. For those who don't know, I spent the better part of over 2 decades working in WWF/WWE, mostly as a referee inside the ring.
I have the honor of meeting the magnificent LuFisto.
I heard that you were described as the first lady of hardcore. I've just recently found out what hardcore is.
Yeah, thanks to Madman Pondo.
When I've learned that I was going to be inducted, it was like, it is now my time to tell the story of women's wrestling. Because so many times I've heard, oh, this is the first time this happens in women's wrestling history. And I'm like, no.
I learned all about the storytelling and writing process from Tom Casiello.
Yeah, I was in soap operas for 14 years. I was at Young and the Restless last. That was from 2009 to 2011. And so I thought, I'll go in for the interview. I'll be honest with them. If I blow it, I blow it. Not the end of the world. And I was there for 6 years. And I rose up the ranks to managing lead writer. And it was the most insane time period of my entire life.
I got a new skincare regime from RJ City.
Checking out your hair, and I wish that mine looked like yours. You have beautiful locks.
Thank you. The secret, this isn't a plug, it feels like an endorsement, is aloe vera. I have it here. I put it on my skin. I put it in my hair. I use the gel. I put a couple drops of peppermint in.
I have a plant right there on my
Good.
fridge.
Cut it open, squeeze it out, and put it Honestly, wherever you want. It's good for you.
I find out that Colt Cabana is just famous enough that he can still buy groceries. And Tyson Kidd tells me all about the People's Elbow. Who knew?
Basically comes to a complete stop, then brings his leg over the guy like he's going to do a leg drop. But the leg like keeps circling past the guy, and then he drops an elbow on the guy.
Oh, and the elbow represents like all the people of the fans?
Like
he's been voted, he's going to drop this elbow?
Well, like he started calling himself the People's Champion, and then that move just became the People's Elbow.
And then there's also, as you know, there's the People's Strudel.
Yeah. I mean, there's the People's Eyebrow. There's a lot of the people. Got a lot of people.
So check out an unscripted spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. Available anywhere you get your podcasts.